Hooday, Bengal fans. He is Mon. I am Jake. That is Eric. This is the Bengals Pulse, the heartbeat of our victorious Cincinnati Bengals. I don't know about you guys, but I'm not sure anybody had on their bingo card tonight
Nick
that
Vigil.
Nick Vigil would block the punt and set the Cowboys up for the game winner, but instead whatever occurred after that, I have never seen in any level of football before. That is absolutely atrocious, but we will take it. A win is a win, and like Joe Burrow said after the game, man, we have gotten no breaks this season. It's nice to finally get one. Mon, your initial thoughts on this football game. Obviously, we're going to break it all down here, but I want your initial thoughts, Mon, on the Bengals 27-20 win over the Dallas Cowboys on Monday Night Football.
Got lucky. I'm happy for winning. I'm happy for winning. Guys, is there a more interesting, chaotic, crazy team in any American sport right now than the Cincinnati Bengals? Every time they're on TV, every game they play, it's just nutty. It's crazy. Where we get a punt blocked, and it's just to recover that in a bizarre fashion in the drive down and get that touchdown by Chase. It was great. I love a win. We needed one. I wish we had more, but I'm never going to complain about a win. But at the same time, I'm just the ugly roster flaws, the issues with the Bengals. We saw them again tonight, and it just so much work to be done to get us where we need to be.
Eric, your initial thoughts.
We don't have those things ever go our way, and Mon's gone dark on us because that's how he feels. We don't ever have those things go our way, and of course, those things start going our way when we are close to mathematically eliminated.
Yeah.
It's like the maybe it's like a wrestling match where they have the guy down and out, and they know that they're about to lose you as fans, and they know that they need to have something that turnaround where you'll reel everybody back in. It does feel like a life of a Bengals fan that things finally start going our way when we're pretty close to out of it as in playoff contention. Maybe we've stumbled onto the way that the universe needs to script these games. A lot of Bengals fans were punting on this season and talking about the draft and giving there's absolutely no chance. And you guys know I'm never there's no chance until we're actually eliminated. But maybe that's the script. Maybe we need to have people give up on the season week one, and then there'll be a chance, and we'll go on that run. A lot of people gave up on them just a couple of years ago after that debacle on Halloween night in Cleveland, and they ran off 12 straight victories. It wasn't enough, but when everybody gives up, that's when they seem to turn around. So I still believe there's a chance. We need a lot of help, but got to get one before you can get to nine. So I'm okay with it, and I'm excited to finally go to bed tonight or tomorrow morning with a Bengals victory.
I don't know how you guys feel about this, and we kind of talked about it. All of us, the three of us, and Ace and Zen, we kind of talked about today on our group chat, our text. We talked about the feeling of where the season is right now. The Bengals being 5-8. Again, even if they reel off the next four, there has to be a lot of things that happens. I mean, we're not a playoff team. The three of us can agree on that, I think. Crazier things have happened. There's no doubt about it. But I do think it's an interesting conversation to have, guys, because we talked a little bit about it today. And that is, and I would love to see it in the comments as well, everybody's thoughts on where the Bengals are in the season, because I know a lot of people are talking about, I saw it in the chat earlier. Somebody said, well, that knocked us down the draft board. Some people are looking towards the draft already. I can't do that, guys. I think I said in our group chat earlier, I've only rooted against the Bengals one time in my 40 plus years of being a Bengals fan, and that was against the Dolphins to get Joe Burrow. That's the only game I've ever rooted against the Bengals. I can't do it. I cannot do it. I cannot find in myself as a competitor even to play for the draft, because I think part of me feels like, well, the Bengals are going to screw up the draft anyways. It doesn't matter where we're picking. We talked about that on last week's show. Mon, what are your thoughts real quick on this? I do think it's an interesting conversation to have, especially where the Bengals are sitting right now in this season, Mon.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm never going to root against them to lose. Um, yeah, optimal draft position, a top 6, top 7 pick would be nice. But you know what? I always want this team to win. We have a 1, 2, 3% chance of making the playoffs. We're not making the playoffs this year, guys. But I think winning is important, and I'm going to root for them to win out. I really am. And saying that, I'm not going to ignore the obvious. This team has probably the best offensive player in football in Jamar Chase, and Joe Burrow is going to get comeback player of the year, and his stats are phenomenal. We have 2 unbelievable players, and they are masking a lot of significant roster holes on this team. And that's where we're going to be talking about that during the offseason. But we saw those roster flaws in this game. And I'm telling you, if they don't do something, Joe Burrow is going to have another catastrophic injury this year. I don't want that to happen, but man, he gets destroyed. He only got sacked twice tonight, but he was hit so many other times. Had to put a sleeve on that injured knee that he injured a few years ago. Man, I am. It's just not sustainable.
Eric, what are your thoughts on it? I mean, obviously, I know you talked about it before. I mean, I know you of anybody is not rooting against the Bengals to lose a football game. But what are your thoughts on that, real quick, and then we'll get to the game.
Yeah, but before I get that, just shout out to 513 for the super chat.
Thank you,
Don't everybody hit the
513.
like button
Appreciate
if
it.
y'all haven't. We appreciate that. Obviously, I want us to win out. Last year we drafted 18th. We were 9-8. You know, if yeah, we could have a top 10 pick, but how realistic is it for us to lose every one of our games? We play the Titans, we play the Browns, we have the Steelers. I think there was going to be 2 wins in there no matter what, and you're probably not in the top 10 if you got another 2 wins. So I can't root for my Bengals to lose. Why watch the games if I'm going to root for them to lose? Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and Trey Hendrickson are the ultimate competitors. And what don't we want? We do not want them to get beat down and get used to losing, and they hate losing. So to go out there when the everything is against them this year and be able to gut out some victories, that's going to put a lot in the tank for them for coming seasons to go. You know, there's a chance that we sneak into the playoffs. The Chiefs do not want to see us. They keep talking about how they're the most vulnerable going into the first round. If by the grace of God we snuck in there, I think we would take them down in the first round. I don't think they're going to be the number 1 seed. The way just how flawed they are as a team. I want to say, you know, I'll shout out to Kinsey and her comment. I cannot post it, but F them picks. Stack wins. What's the difference in 18th and 12th? We're still, you know, it's in the first round. It's not going to help us. Not going to be that big of a difference. Second, third, fourth, it's possibly going to be a bigger difference, but we're not going to be in a top 5, top 10 pick. So let's go out here and let's get 9 victories and let's have another season where we don't, you know, have a losing season. I know here the argument is a lot of people want our coaching staff to be completely revamped.
That
And
was going to be my next comment.
yeah,
Yeah.
we've gone down that rabbit hole a lot, and there's merit to that because even tonight we saw offense stalled when it should have been able to put this game away. So there is merit, and there's a conversation to be had there. But realistically, you have to get to 11 losses to really see that happen, maybe more. I love this team too much to root for them to lose that much. You know, I would rather hope that they can go out there and plug in a couple good guards, maybe move Matt Lee to center next year, and then just throw that $100 million at the defense and wherever else you need to go. So yeah, that's my thoughts. I just I
Yeah,
can't I
I'm
can't
with
think
you.
about the draft until we're eliminated.
I'm with you. And again, to me, this team is not very good at building through the draft anyway. So why are we even talking about that as a fan base, worrying about where we're picking? This Duke Tobin and the scouting department have shown over and over again that they do not do a good job evaluating players. Let's go 9-8. Let's give the team a little bit of energy going into the offseason. Obviously, the coaching thing is a discussion that probably has to be had. To me, if this team doesn't make the playoffs, the coaching staff should be fired. This team, with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase being healthy, it's just insane that's even the case of what we're talking about. Let's talk about the game, guys. Couple of interesting stats here. The Bengals with 23 first downs, the Cowboys with 17. Third down efficiency, not very good for the Bengals, going 4 out of 10. That's not very good. And then on fourth down, 0 for 1. Total plays, the Bengals at 65, the Cowboys at 59. Total yards by the Bengals, 433. Yes, the defense did play better tonight, but still gave up 156 yards rushing against this Cowboys team at 6.2 yards per carry. So as good as this defense played, and they had a couple of big plays with a sack and an interception, still obviously giving up a lot of yards on the ground. The Bengals rushed for 74 yards at 3.9 yards a carry. Once again, we've talked about this running game over and over and over. This Cowboys team, their defense was just as bad as the Bengals as far as where they were ranked. How would you sum up the Bengals offense against this poorly ranked Cowboys defense tonight? Do you think the Bengals? I mean, obviously Joe Burrow threw for almost 400 yards again and 3 touchdowns, but are you surprised the Bengals couldn't run the ball efficiently against this Cowboys team?
Not really. No. The Bengals. The Bengals offense all season has been uneven. It's hard to criticize them because the numbers have been so impressive. The offense has been the strength of this team. It's been the least of our worries. But they said it tonight. Troy Aikman said it. The Bengals are passing the ball 74, 75% of the time. Chase Brown had a couple electric runs, but he also had a lot that literally 1-2 yard carries. I think when it comes to rushing the ball, it's not really going to be consistent and better until they fix that offensive line. The interior offensive line is just average at best. Karras is the best player in the interior. Our 2 guards they're not good players. They're not good NFL quality players, and it's really hindering this offense. It's a testament to how good Chase and Burrow and Higgins is when he plays, how good they are to overcome those roster flaws there, because those guys are just having career years, historical numbers by Chase, and that's really masking some of those major deficiencies on that offensive line. But I don't think that running game is going to be where it needs to be, or that offense is going to get there until they fix that interior offensive line.
Yeah, I agree. And Volson tonight was not very good. Again, obviously getting benched last week, but with Orlando Brown Jr.'s injury, having to play tonight. Let's look at the individual stats. Joe Burrow, 33 of 44, 369, 3 touchdowns. He did have the 1 pick, which was not a good throw by him by any means. Mon, you said it earlier, he was sacked twice. Still a 112 rating. Again, feels like every one of his games he finishes with a 110 or higher quarterback rating. Just an absolutely incredible season. Came into the game leading the league in passing yards and touchdowns, and obviously helping his cause there. Chase Brown, 14 carries for 58 yards, 4.1 a carry. Receiving, Jamar Chase, 14 catches tonight for Jamar Chase. The triple crown is in hand, guys. 14 catches, 177 yards, 2 touchdowns. Chase Brown, although he ran for only 58 guys, 6 receptions for 65 yards, and that awesome touchdown catch. Yoshi, 4 catches, 41 yards. Gesicki, 3 for 24. T only 2 catches for 23 yards tonight, completely taken out of the game. I think that's probably what I was most surprised about was the struggles that T had, or us getting the football to T, I should say. Offensively, guys, your thoughts on the production. And I want to talk a little bit about some of these younger guys now that are really stepping up. Chase Brown, to me, just looks like the real deal. I mean, he is good. He is twitchy. He is explosive. He is something the Bengals have wanted for a very long time. And then even a guy like Yoshivas, who, man, he is really coming into his own too. That some of these younger players for the Bengals on offense, I am loving the way they are playing. Real quick, Mon, your thoughts first on Chase Brown and the way he is developing as a running back. Very impressive, right?
Yeah, he's electric. Every time he touches the ball, he could literally break one 50, 60 yards for a touchdown. He is explosive, and you saw that tonight. Unfortunately, you also saw a lot of just there was no holes there. I mean, guys penetrating and tackles for losses or 1-yard gains. There's just inconsistency there. My only issue with Chase Brown is the fumbles. We haven't seen it in a few weeks, which is a good thing. He has a history of it. It's just in the back of my head. He's had a couple this year, and I'm just worried about that. He's not a very big guy. He's 200 pounds, rocked up a little bit. I think he's 205 pounds. He's not really a bell cow running back. I would like to see Herbert come in and get a couple more snaps to keep Chase Brown fresh. But yeah, he's electric. We haven't had a running back like that since Gio, and he's more explosive than Gio.
Agreed. Eric, I'm going to go to you on this one because you own a Yoshi jersey. Yoshivas, and the way he has played lately, I don't know, man. I am really impressed on this young receiver. I think he is going to be a very good player for the Cincinnati Bengals. Not saying I don't want them to re-sign T because of it, but your thoughts on Yoshi and the way he's played here these last couple weeks?
Yeah, we do have a super chat here on the T conversation too, so I'll put that up and then I'll give you my comments.
Okay.
Justin Croft says that games like this is why he's good with T leaving. I don't agree with that. I think games like this is what you see the value of having a T Higgins and a Jamar Chase. They
Agreed.
can't game plan for both of them, and I think they kind of decided to take T away, which is a unique strategy. But Jamar Chase will feast. As far as Yoshi goes, he is great in this offense. He is not a T replacement, in my opinion. He's not going to be the number 2 we really thought Burton would be. But in the offense that we have to have now, we really rely on Joe dropping back, Joe scrambling, everybody improvising, and Yoshi has proven himself to be very, very good at improvising. I don't think he's going to replace T, but I definitely think that he's going to be a red zone weapon for years to come, because the way teams succeed in the red zone is often improvising, and we've seen he has the ability to know where Joe's going and know where Joe wants to go, and that's why he has those big plays on third down, those big catches, and those big touchdowns, because he's on the same page with Joe. So I think we still need another receiver if we let T go, but I'm not putting Yoshi anywhere lower than 4th on this depth chart.
Yeah, I agree. Let's look at the defense, guys. Again, a defense that we know obviously has struggled this year, has been definitely the low point of this season. Joseph Osai, a sack quietly 3 games in a row now. Joseph Osai has had a sack. BJ Hill, Mon, your player so far of the year with a big sack as well. And obviously Trey Hendrickson getting his 12th sack of the season. Go ahead, Mon. Do you want to say something?
We have a special guest. Let's bring him up, Eric.
Yeah, hey, the Pulse is nothing without joining us tonight. So without further, let's bring the man, the myth, the legend, Ace.
What's up,
What up,
fellas? How you
Ace?
guys doing?
What's up, my man? How you doing?
Pretty good, man. Pretty exciting game, right?
Yeah. Did you have that ending on your bingo card?
I did not, bro. That was, I mean, especially this season, the way that ended with the punt block there. Usually that goes against the Bengals. I'm expecting that to be
Yeah.
a punt block return for a touchdown or
Oh
something the way the
God, I
season is gonna
know.
go.
They
But
practiced that last week. That was a good play call by Zach Taylor, the punt block.
Yeah,
the
he was
Earl
on
to
his home
Chase,
sheet.
though, not a surprise. We have seen that this season.
Yeah,
That was
yeah.
nice. That
Well,
was nice.
right now we're talking about defense, but I do real quick, Ace. I want to jump back and get your thoughts on this. We were talking a little bit about uh, Yoshi and Chase Brown and some of these younger guys on offense that, man, they are the real deal, right? I mean, the Bengals, they can't draft defense worth a damn, but man, do they do well when it comes to offensive skill players. What are you thinking about Chase Brown and Yoshi Voss? I mean, these guys are going to be good players for the Bengals on offense for a long time to come. What do you think?
Yeah, I think, seeing what you saw at Chase Brown tonight, there was a lot of talk of Genty, right? Because Genty has been killing
Yeah,
it in college
yeah,
football. And, no matter how you feel about it, you had to at least think about bringing that guy here based off of what he was able to bring. I think what Chase Brown has shown you in the last couple of games is, hey, maybe you don't need to look at a running back in the first 2 rounds with this pick. Maybe Chase Brown is your guy, even though he might not be what is considered a bell cow or a main guy. He's kind of shown that he can step in and kind of give you that Giovanni Bernard role that we've seen before, where Gio was kind of the lead guy. Chase Brown is, I think, just a dog. I mean, he's explosive. He
yeah.
brings something to this offense that it needs. The run game, there's still a lot to be desired in some aspects of it, but Chase Brown is at least giving you 1 to 2 explosive plays per game. And I thought about it, thinking about it early in the season. When I looked at who the Bengals' most explosive player was early on, I expected the stats to tell me that it was Jamar Chase, and it actually was Chase Brown. And he's continued to kind of live up to that building. Yoshi, I was able to finally see a game where he was able to get more than just 1 target here, 2 targets there, and that kind of be it for him. It was kind of better for us to see him get, 4 receptions in this one, to be able to make some plays in the clutch, to be able to have some run after catch in this one. So I think Yoshi and Chase Brown, definitely, like you're saying, are the future. And we have some other ones, right? Eric All, unfortunately, his career was kind of cut, or not his career, but his season was cut short. But yeah, they seem to be doing some things. I don't know. A lot of people are saying, where was Burton at? I don't know. Jermaine Burton, we haven't seen him. He's going to have to step it up for us to be able to say, I saw people talking about, hey, T might be out of here and stuff like that. We've got to see more from these guys from a receiving standpoint, because I'm going to be honest, man, this was the Jamar Chase show. Like there wasn't really another person outside of Chase Brown that really stepped up in the receiving game that had a huge impact, right? Chase Brown was the second leading receiver with the 6 receptions in this one. So we've got to see more from Burton. And I was a Burton guy, so I'm here saying, like, this isn't acceptable from what we've seen from him. But I think that, seeing what you saw from Yoshi, that is a little bit promising. But hopefully we can get some more out of some of these guys. But yeah, you're right, Jake. We have gotten nothing out of the defense. We did see Joseph Asai do some things tonight. We did see Miles Murphy finally get some stuff going. But yeah. They've got some cornerstones, I think, with this young offensive weapon room coming up.
And did we finally see a turn? Because every time we looked up, Sam Hubbard wasn't out there. I don't know if I saw Sam Hubbard once tonight.
He was out. I think Hubbard played more than the other guys, but right now the Bengals have to play Murphy and Osai more. We have to get them 30 plus snaps a game. I mean, it's a must. We got to see what we have in those guys, and including the younger guys. Like Marco Wilson looked good tonight. He's very athletic. His athletic scores through the roof. Hopefully they can develop him, get something out of him. I want to say something about Chase. Everybody knows the ball's going to him. The defense knows it, and they still can't stop him. He is that good. He's going to make $200 million next year. I was listening to the Manning cast for about 20 minutes. What did Bill Belichick says? He goes, when you play Cincinnati, you got to take away Higgins. You got to take away Chase. He goes, no questions asked. Make the running backs, make the other guys make plays. You can't let those guys kill you. He goes, everybody knows it's going to them. Look at his stat line for the year. Nobody can stop Jamar Chase. He is that dominant. Man, I tell you, it's what irritates me. I'm cranky because of our record. We shouldn't have this record because we have arguably two of the best players at their position in the NFL. We only got 5 wins, man.
I don't think it's arguably. I think we do have. Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase.
Chase is the best wide receiver in football. Chase is the best wide receiver in football.
And Joe Burrow is the best quarterback. You can't. There's no argument that says otherwise. I mean, those two are just incredible. Let's look at and yes, I was just going to talk about Marco Wilson, who I thought played a great football game tonight. Think about it, guys. Marco Wilson just joining the team, goes out, and I don't know how many snaps he had. I don't have it in front of me, but it felt like he was in there 70% of the time. Cade York, we saw just as much of his girlfriend as we did Cade, but Cade York, and for good reason. Cade York, I think Cade York's girlfriend gave Mon a little bit more color in that mustache tonight. Cade York comes in. He goes for 2 for 2. I mean, kicks the ball well. I kept it away from Turpin, which I think is another key point here, is not letting that guy return the ball. You talk about explosive. That guy is incredible. But defensively, I do think it's interesting because we saw Marco Wilson a lot, guys. We saw DJ Ivey playing a lot of snaps tonight, boys. Playing that role of Flowers, what Flowers used to do for us in that slot, covering those dual threat tight end guys. And again, I think Miles Murphy played. Listen, on that last drive, Miles Murphy, Joseph Asai, Trey Hendrickson, those were the guys in the football game. Sam Hubbard was not in the football game. So I think those are interesting points. Jordan Battle, guys, Jordan Battle played the entire football game tonight and played well. I thought he played well. So, I do think there are some positives and some lights at the end of the tunnel when it comes to some of these defensive players. But I also think some of the other guys, you talked about it, Mon, Sam Hubbard, obviously Sheldon Rankins was not a good pickup in the offseason. Thoughts on Jermaine Pratt, guys? I mean, Jermaine Pratt tonight had a couple of explosive plays, but man, missed a lot of tackles still. This defense still not tackling well. What are your thoughts on Jermaine Pratt, Mon, and the way he played tonight? Very uneven, I thought. Very inconsistent.
Yeah, I think it's very uneven. He made a couple key plays there, tackle for loss. Almost had a pick six there. He dropped that ball. He has a knack for getting the key turnover. He's done that over his whole career. But I think his play, I think he slowed down a little bit. He's just not the Pratt we've seen over the last few years. I want to circle back to a couple of things you said. The Ivy, some of these younger players, it's really good to see them out there. We need to see what we have going into 2025. As much as I want them to win every game, which I do, we talked about that earlier, I want to see these young guys develop because we have got to find out what they are, because it's going to play a big role in the rebuilding this roster and getting this back in Super Bowl contention.
Agreed. Ace, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on Jermaine Pratt and I don't know what I think about this Bengals linebacking core. I was so big on it coming into the season, so big on it that when Peyton Wilson was sitting there, I was like, no, we don't need him. Go skip him. And now I'm wishing that we might have drafted him. What do you think? What do you think about this Bengals linebacking core?
Yeah, I mean, it's no secret that I think not even just the linebacking core, the Bengals defense in general has struggled, especially when it comes to tackling and finishing plays out there. Jermaine Pratt, I believe he had 7 tackles tonight. Yes, he did have some key missed tackles. He almost had interception that could have been one of his patented plays that he ended up dropping. I just think it's been a lot of the defense has been struggling this season. And, it starts with our linebackers. They've got to make plays. It starts with the trenches. They have to get pressure. And it starts on the back end. They have to cover guys. Like, it's just been a mixed bag. I think the one thing that I can say is even though they had moments tonight where there were lapses in coverage and stuff like that, they stepped up when it mattered. That's not to say that, the defense is by no means not the weakest point of the team. They stepped up when it matters. With Jermaine Pratt, you've got him on a pretty cheap deal. I think Pratt is possibly a guy that you bring back next year. You definitely bringing back Logan Wilson, but I don't think that you put all the chips in on those guys. You probably go into the draft and take a linebacker. John Meta was able to make a play on special teams, so I think you keep him in mind. But yeah, not the year from them that you expected, but it's just not a year that I've seen the defense do anything, right? Like, it hasn't just been Jermaine Pratt that hasn't been able to tackle. We kind of talk about people jumped on Geno Stone. I think Geno Stone had a bounce back game for his performance, which isn't hard given that it's just kind of been a disaster season for him. But yeah, we expect these guys to play better. We'll see. But yeah, not the best season for these Bengals linebackers. And even another guy that I expected to really step up last week, Kim Davis-Gaither. Last week, his performance, I haven't looked at his performance this week, but last week that wasn't a good performance either. So, maybe they can get some more out of these guys. But Jermaine Pratt, he's got to play more consistent and be better. They got the win, so I'm not gonna jump on them too much. But man, at times it's just been puzzling. Man, it seems like that middle's been open this whole season. No matter what someone wants to do, if someone wants to go for a big play, it just seems like the Bengals defense is going to give it up.
Yeah, and we got a super chat here. I'll read.
Oh yeah, let's get to it.
Just to add one thing to that he kind of shot himself in the foot today because last week Jermaine Pratt was claiming to not see any missed tackles. One of those big runs, I think a 40-yard run, was he had him dead to rights in the backfield and he let him go. So that really kind of skewed the numbers today as far as our rush defense. One of the things that I wonder these last 2 weeks, we said it all before in the offseason, our linebackers had a rough year last year because they didn't have the quality safety communication back there, and it made them play slower because they had to think. Well, Logan Wilson's not there, so Jermaine Pratt's got the green dot, so he's responsible for calling plays. He's responsible for everybody out there being in the right place. I don't think you really want that out of a linebacker as much because he should be worried about where he needs to be, being able to react, be able to make those moves quickly, and up until the snap, he's making sure that everybody's faking blitzes and moving where they need to be. I think that is affecting, or at least these last 2 games that he did. Go ahead, Mon, before we do the super chat.
I'm sorry, real quick. Joe Burrow said after the game he feels very confident the Bengals are going to do what it takes to have T. Higgins return.
Oh,
wow.
Throw that out there.
Talk to him, Joe.
That sounds okay.
That
sounds like Joe Burrow saying the Bengals are going to do what I need them to do. Let's talk about that with the super chat here too, because Jesus says we played Burrow after he was limping, and the season's over. Season's not over, and Joe Burrow's not going to give up. But we'll go to Mon first. So what do you think about Joe Burrow having to put that knee brace on there? I know a lot of people out there say they should be shutting it down, but what do you think?
Joe Burrow says his knee feels very good. He'll be okay. He'll just get it checked tomorrow, but he feels very good. I mentioned it earlier when the show started. I don't like seeing him get hit that much. Guys, it's a combination of things. I don't think the offensive line is as good as it needs to be. But at the same time, it's just his style of play. The guy holds on to the ball. He's looking down the field. It's also the play calling. It's a pass-heavy team. I get it. It should be with him. He's a talented quarterback. But man, just a little bit more diversity, maybe just a little bit more, running just a little bit, just a few less hits a season, a game, because the guy is getting absolutely pummeled. It's not all on the offensive line, but whatever the reasons are, we've got to improve on it because I just don't want him to take all those hits. He's not a very big guy. He's not Herbert. He's not Allen. He's about 225 pounds, 220. I don't think it's sustainable because the guy, he's a warrior. He's not afraid, but he gets hit a lot. And I just don't want another career ending. I don't want another season ending injury.
We did see a lot more under center work tonight, which I think has always been a lot of the Bengals fans' request: go under center, work off play action. What do you guys think about kind of evolving more to that Jake Browning offense? It looked like, at least for a good portion of the game today. What are your thoughts on the Ace?
Yeah, I mean, it's about time. I think we were kind of talking about it behind the scenes. I felt like one of the announcers, he really did a good job of doing his homework and knowing, the Bengals offense. You always hear people talk about, oh, Zach Taylor, he's come from the Sean McVay tree. He hasn't really used those principles in this offense. He's not using the run to set up the pass. He's not using a lot of play action. So to see them kind of come out here and do that and start to use running back screens, I think it's an adjustment because Zach Taylor knows that his job's on the line here, guys. Like, it seems like every time he gets into this kind of position where it's like, is Zach the guy? He finally does the things to make it easier on this Bengals offense. And I get it. Joe Burrow's an elite quarterback. I agree with Jake. He's the best quarterback in the NFL, but you don't need to make everything 4D chess for him when it comes to this offense. That's one of the reasons why he had so much pressure on him, is that they don't do things like this to help him out. So I was glad to finally see it. I was glad to see some running back screens. I've been asking for those all year. And then finally, when they run one, Chase Brown scores a touchdown. And it's like, come on, man, let's make this as simple as possible. So it was good for me to see that. Now, some people do say that a lot of it has to do with some people that I've talked to said that's the way Joe wants it. He wants to run the offense this way. He kind of wants to do it because it makes it more fun for him. But as a leader and as a coach, and Zach Taylor, you've got to make it easier on your quarterback. You can't have him making it harder on himself in these situations. So I was glad to see it.
Yeah, and I think too, some of our listeners are making the point of Joe Burrow out of the gun, and I do think some of that, there's some truth to that. I think that Joe Burrow feels more comfortable in shotgun. So I'd be interesting to hear if that's a Joe call or if that's a Zach call. I think maybe it more so might be Joe saying, keep me in the gun and let me do my thing. I obviously want them to run the football. That 3rd and 2 down in the red zone and the 50-50 to T, I just don't like that play call. I don't like it. Listen, I love T and I believe in Joe, but that's a low percentage throw in the NFL. It's a low percentage throw in any level of football. The 3rd and 2 guys, we have seen this over and over and over. As long as Zach has been calling these plays, the red zone offense is not good. It's just not good. And it's gotten a little bit better this year. I don't know if that's more of Chase Brown, maybe being a little bit more versatile, catching and running the football and being more explosive, or Joe Burrow playing better in the red zone. But this Bengals offense is not good in the red zone. It's just not. I just don't like it. I don't like it in the red zone. And again, on 3rd and 2, I feel like every other team in the NFL can line up and run the football twice and pick up 3rd and 2, and we are throwing 50-50 balls into the end zone. I don't know. It just drives me nuts, Mon. I know it drives you nuts. Mon, your thoughts on the red zone play calling? Again, what were they tonight? 2 for 4, I think, in the red zone, right? 2 for 4 touchdowns and then 2 field goals.
It's really hard to bash this offense that put up 30-plus points a game. I know they didn't put up 30 today, but
Yeah.
situational play calling with Zach Taylor drives me bonkers. What was the game earlier in the season where it was 4th and 1, 3rd and 1? They kept on throwing 30, 40-yard go routes. We talked about that. That's frustrating. Eric, can you post that tweet that was posted earlier? Joe Burrow said he's going to do what he can do to make sure T stays. That's what he said. Restructuring his contract. I don't know what he meant. But Joe was talking about T, and management better listen.
Yeah,
so I
put the quote down bottom here, but you start to dissect a little bit because he says in 2025. I mean, that could just be another year on the franchise tag. Do we read in that he's going to make sure that they pay?
I don't think that's what that means. I don't think that's.
Now, he said he is willing to do what it takes to make that happen.
I think that sounds more like long term. That doesn't sound like
that doesn't sound like a 1-year deal.
And here's the thing. I saw some people saying this is the game. Games like this is why you don't keep T. And Jake knows this as a coach. Jamar Chase wouldn't have been able to get the 177 yards that he got tonight without T. Higgins opening him up. Like, it's not always going to show on the stat sheet, but it's going to allow to open up Jamar Chase to do these things and to have single coverage in some of these opportunities when you have him there. I mean, we've seen it throughout the season when T wasn't there, the triple teams and stuff that we've seen on Jamar Chase. So just don't think because T. Higgins didn't blow it up tonight that he didn't have an impact on the game.
Yeah, I agree.
We got the post from Paul Daner. I know the one before was from Jay Morrison, but Paul Daner's post, Joe Burrow just said it. He's confident they'll be able to find a way to get T. Higgins back, and he's willing to do what it takes. And they asked him a follow-up why he's confident. He offered a sly, "We'll see." They did make a lot of comments about him having things worked into his deal to facilitate that. So maybe he's just going to exercise those options that allow them to move cash around the T.
Yeah, and hey, this is on Bengals ownership. Joe is saying he's willing to do what it takes. Step up and do it. I don't want to hear the excuse anymore where it's like a Carson Palmer situation when Carson was offering to do that and they just didn't listen to him, where he was like, hey, I'm willing to restructure for you guys to get a new practice facility or to go and get this guy in free agency. And Mike Brown just scoffed at him like, no, they need to listen to this and they need to take that money and use it on T. Higgins, and they need to lock up Jamar Chase. They need to lock both of these guys up because that's the foundation of the Cincinnati Bengals.
For sure.
I agree 100%. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We got a couple more super chats. Another follow-up for Jesus. Joe always says he's good, but he had a brace. Does anybody think that we could see any
precautionary?
Joe's not good.
No,
it's just precautionary. I think it's just precautionary. I think he's going to be fine. Jesus.
Okay.
Yeah, I get it because it's like, damn, you see Joe get hit so many times, but at the end of the day, Joe's going to go out there and play, man.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Joe ain't sitting. Joe is not sitting. You guys might all want to just get that out of your heads because Joe Burrow is not sitting.
So it's kind of like, I bet Logan Wilson could have played, but they went in and looked at his knee. I guarantee you, Joe's not letting anybody look at his knee.
I just want to reiterate something. On the Manning cast tonight with Belichick, he said it. He goes, guys, you can't let Chase and Higgins beat you. You have to do everything in your power on defense to contain them. Have somebody else on that Bengal offense make a play. He goes, those guys are that good. If Bill Belichick is saying that, come on, man. I mean, I think Mike Brown will listen to him. You got to keep T. Higgins. You got to.
He needs to just come in as a consultant.
I think no matter what happens after this season ends, I'm with Mon. I don't see the Bengals getting rid of Zach Taylor. I think everybody needs to get that out of their minds.
I'm not saying I don't want that.
I know you're not saying that, and I was just about to say the same thing. I'm not saying I don't want that, but I think I just don't see it happening. I think this offense, it's been one of the best offenses in football, and I think Zach will get a pass because of that. I do think Lou is gone. I do think there will be some big changes. I think, I really do believe this, and I know I said this last year too. I do think the Bengals are going to find a way to get T and to get Jamar on this football team. And again, I know I've said that. I feel like I've said that for the last 2 years, but they're still on the team together. And I think they will be on the team together because, like I said before, Joe Burrow effect is a real thing. And I do believe that this ownership, they have done some bonehead things. There's no doubt about it in the past, but I think they know that Joe Burrow is their chance of winning a Super Bowl, and let's do what Joe Burrow has to do, right, Ace?
Yeah, you gotta listen to. I mean, it's Joey franchise, bro. Like you can't not listen to Joe Burrow. You don't want to piss him off. I think Joe is very strategic in saying this one. This is right after a win. This is after a game where Jamar is going off. Like keep that in mind. Jamar goes off. Not a huge night for T. Higgins, and he's still like, yeah, he's gonna be here. We want him here. Don't take this as Jamar can just do it himself. So yeah, you got to listen to your franchise.
And I think too. I think Joe Burrow. I do think the Joe Burrow situation, the Carson Palmer situation. I think that's an interesting as far as how management listens to both. I think Carson Palmer again, and I'm not trying to go after Carson or anything, but Carson Palmer, guys, he got things that he asked for, right? He got TO, he got things that he asked for, and I think by that time, Ace, I think the Bengals management, I don't want to speak for him, but I think the Bengals management were like, listen, dude, we're done with the things that you want, kind of a thing.
But I will say, Jake, they got T.O. on the discount clearance rack, right? Like they got him for
but Carson wanted him. Carson wanted T.O.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's I don't know. That's like,
But I listen. As much as it pains me to say this, I hated the way he left. I hated the way he bad talked the Bengals. The Bengals went on to go to 5 consecutive playoff appearances without him. The Bengals were quietly building an elite NFL roster. He was too stubborn to see that, but he had valid points, and the points are this: we're seeing it now. In-season adjustments, things like that. The great, hey, your team is there. You're leaking some oil. Add a couple pieces here to get your team over the hump, and the Bengals just don't do that. And he had some valid points, though.
Yeah, he's a quitter. I don't respect him from that standpoint. I honestly wanted to cut him before he said that he wanted to be out, so I was good with it because we were wasting money. But his points were valid. I think some of the big things that they didn't do. Yes, they did get him TO, but he asked for them to get defensive players. And I remember back then the Bengals really needed a defensive tackle. They didn't make a move to get one. He kind of talked about them being more aggressive in the draft. Hey, stop sitting on your hands waiting for someone to fall to you. Go up and get one of these players that's an impact player that you don't have to roll the dice on. And we're seeing some of these things still happen now. But yeah, I don't like Carson Palmer, but I do have to sit back and say he was right when it comes to the Bengals front office about pinching pennies and not taking some of these concerns serious.
No, I'm not saying that. Let me just say this real quick. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I think management feels differently about Joe Burrow, if that makes sense. What I'm saying. Sure. Like I think when Joe speaks, there's a lot more. I don't know. I just feel like it carries a lot more weight than maybe by the time all that situation happened with Carson. All right, let's get to that super chat.
Well, because last thought on it, because Joe Burrow got him to a Super Bowl, they know Joe Burrow is him. The only thing with that is maybe we needed this to be at this point of the season for two things: Joe Burrow to start talking to the refs and saying, "Why the hell am I not getting these calls?" And two, Joe Burrow talking to Mike Brown and Katie Blackburn and family and saying, "Why the hell are you not keeping T. Higgins?" Jamar Chase feasted because the Dallas Cowboys' number one cornerback had to line up against T a lot, which when do you ever see that? You've got a 1 and a 1A. So T. Higgins is going to allow Jamar Chase to go off for years to come and vice versa. And you got to keep them together. Sacrifice defense if you need. You got to keep them together. We got one more super chat from Brucey B. I'm going to go to Mon for this one. We'll let him take it first. He says, "How do we feel about York's girlfriend?" Cade York. Cade York did step up tonight. He was playing in front of his super fan. We didn't have to worry about him. Every kick he had, he made. And the one reason that they gave us information tonight, the reason the Bengals signed him, is they knew that the Cowboys had a dangerous return man, and they signed the guy that could kick it out of the end zone every time. Made his field goals. Mon, what do you think?
No, it was great to see. His girlfriend was great to see also. No, listen, he's not our kicker of the future. You know that he's here he's a rental. He's trying out for another team. We know McPherson. Hopefully he returns to Money Mac instead of Food Stamp Mac, and hopefully everything works out with him. But Cade York did a good job tonight. He's here as temporary, and he's going to be on another NFL roster next year.
Yeah, I will just say this, just because doing AFC North talk, Cade York is not the answer that you guys want. Now, I won't say I'm against him being some sort of competition to get Money Mac in line, but Cade York is not the guy. Like, shout out to him, great story. Shout out to him and his girlfriend. I'm glad that he's able to get this opportunity to showcase himself for all of these other teams. But he was a disaster for the Cleveland Browns a few years ago. I don't know if we want that. I don't know if that's the guy that we want.
Hey, how about Eric? Let's throw up Cornell's question, because I think that's an interesting question too.
I don't know.
Listen,
you got some Gator vibes about him.
It is. We're gonna call him on Gator. Cornell, that's great.
He's got this cane he brings out during football games.
Oh boy!
I know you guys. Hey, I got a question for you. I know we talked about it a little bit before, but what does it say that Isaiah Williams can walk into this football team and out-snap Burton? Like,
it's interesting, right?
He doesn't know the roster. He's just out there, and he's out there. He's out there on the field. He's running the plays. He obviously has the trust to know the play calls where they got him in motion. You know, he didn't get the ball thrown his way, but we don't see Burton getting those same snaps.
It says everything you need to know, Eric. Like, he's got to get it together, and it's one of those situations where it's a shame because you just got to be mature, man. At the end of the day, you're a pro. It's not a surprise. So, like, for me, I'm not shocked that this is an issue, because that's why this guy wasn't a first-round pick, right? Was his attitude and some of these things that we're seeing playing off here. But if he doesn't get this together, bro, he could be out of here. You know, if this continues next season, he's out of here. He's out of here. So he's got to get his act together.
Curtis,
I will say this about our punt returner. I like these comments. I'm feeling a lot better about myself right now. Thank you, fellas.
Curtis is great.
Another super chat from Jesus. York ain't it, but Mac ain't either. Mac hasn't been, but I think Mac can get back there.
I think he can too. I just want to say something. We saw the big difference with our punt returner. Irwin was a great Bengal. I appreciate everything he did. No explosion at all. The guy we have back there now, it was refreshing to see. I thought he looked good. I saw some explosion there. And if he gets that punt return, he has the potential to actually run it back for a touchdown. That was never going to happen with Irwin.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. They moved the entire return game around, right? They moved Khalil Herbert to kick returner tonight, and Isaiah Williams to punt returner. So, man, oh man, Jermaine Burton has got a lot of growing up to do. He's that's a shame. I'm with you, Ace, man. When I thought it was a great draft pick, I was excited about him, but obviously, you know. I'm
still
issues.
A fan, man. I'm still a fan.
I am too a fan, but I mean, you know, these guys are pros, man. Like, you know, eventually you're either going to grow. Joe Burrow ain't going to deal with that nonsense. Like, guys like Joe Burrow, they ain't trying to have guys like Jermaine Burton hanging around that aren't going to put the work in, and, you know, are immature and can't find their way on the field to help this football team. It's just I'm not giving up on him, but this is Joe Burrow's team, and he's already made it very clear that Jermaine Burton needs to get his head out of his ass.
And you know what it reminds me of, Jake? This is how we know Joe is a no nonsense guy. When Joe first got here, and John Ross was the receiver, right? Remember when John Ross? It was like some kind of route. John Ross just gave up, and then we never saw John Ross again after that. It was like
never again did we see John Ross, and that was a top 10 pick by the Bengals. That Joe Burrow made very clear that, and again, I'm not wishing anything on Jermaine Burton. I mean, I want to see the guy succeed. Obviously, I think he's talented, but I mean, how many opportunities are you going to give a guy that just can't get it right? I mean, again, this team is trying to find ways to win football games, and Jermaine Burton has now been completely taken out of the return game. Like, he is non-existent tonight. I don't even know if he got snaps on offense, guys.
He did. I saw him on the field. He had limited snaps. Yeah,
but he's not making. It was a point in time where he was making the most out of those snaps, right? Like, even in the preseason when he wasn't getting any, he was making plays. I think about the Chiefs. I just haven't heard them call his name in a while. Like, even when he gets targeted now, he's not making any kind of plays.
Yeah. He was. I know he was out there because I had the Simpsons cast on one TV and the regular cast on another, and his jersey kept coming up in the huddle, but he didn't do anything. So we haven't even talked about that. I don't know if you guys got to see it all, but the Simpsons simulcast was pretty neat. They did the last one. They had a Toy Story simulcast last year, and it was fraught with issues. The tracking on the player tracking on the Simpsons cast was on point. Like, some of Joe Burrow's like off-platform throws, Bart Simpson had the exact same off-platform throw. I know they're gonna have it on ESPN2 as a replay. You gotta watch it. Maybe it'll give you an all 22, but I thought they did a really good job. Thankfully, that's not the only thing we have to talk about tonight, and that's an afterthought because it could have been ugly.
So let me ask you this, guys. I think this is definitely a conversation that needs to be had. Is does this win change anything? The thoughts on the way the Bengals need to approach this offseason, because we, the five of us, we talk about it in our text chain all the time. Are the Bengals going to? I can't remember who it was in our text chain was saying that the Bengals need to win so many games, or whatever the case may be. Is this a game that we kind of just look past and say, okay, well, maybe we need to stick with these coaches, or maybe we need to stick with this? Because I think that's what a lot of Bengal fans are worried about. I think a lot of Bengal fans are worried about, if we keep winning, is this coaching staff coming back? And I think it's a very valid point, because none of us want to see that. I mean, we want the Bengals to win, but we also don't want to see this coaching staff back. It's a very fine line. We talked about this, Ace, before you came on the show. What are your thoughts on that? Winning and tanking, and the three of us said we just can't do it. We can't tank. We cannot root against the Bengals unless they are playing in the Joe Burrow game to draft Joe Burrow. What are your thoughts on that, Ace? How do you feel about that?
This is where the Bengals kind of become an abusive relationship, right? Because it's like you want Zach Taylor gone, but you don't want to lose. Yeah. To me, it's about the bigger picture here. And to me, I was very early on in that season that we got Joe Burrow saying that the Bengals needed to lose. Like, I just didn't see it with Andy Dalton as the quarterback. I couldn't see a way where the Bengals were going to be better than a team like the Cleveland Browns with Baker Mayfield at the time, a team with Lamar Jackson at the time. I just kept looking around saying, man, we've got the worst quarterback in the division. How can we beat these other teams with the worst quarterback? When I watched Hard Knocks, like you guys were saying earlier, I think we have the worst coach in the division. And I hate to say it after a win from Zach Taylor, but the Bengals have underperformed. I'm not going to think that just because the Bengals had a good showing on Monday Night Football and Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow went off, that this team is fine now, because they have not been fine. These have been games that have been mismanaged. And I love seeing
Yeah.
people put up the whole 30
Yes.
points. Every other team is like, I don't know, 100 and something games in two, and the Bengals are 2-4. That comes down to coaching. And when we talk about it, if you're keeping Zach Taylor, you're keeping Lou Anarumo, you're keeping Frank Pollock, you're keeping a lot of the issues that have
Yes.
held this team back. And let's not forget, in my opinion, yes, Zach Taylor got us to a Super Bowl. He also cost us a Super Bowl with some of those questionable decisions that he made in that one. So for me, I'm not going to complain when we win, but if I got to do whatever I got to do to get the right coaches in here for this team, it just is what it is. So for me, I want the best for this team. I want a better coaching staff in here. I don't want to get caught up and be a prisoner of the moment to make this situation make me think, hey, maybe Zach is the guy. Now, there is a valid point to saying, hey, this Bengals offense has been amazing this year at points, right? 30 points per game. But I'm going to be honest, guys, if any one of us were coaching this team, we would expect them still to score 30 points, because you have Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Joe Burrow. I mean, they should be able to do that in spite of those guys, right? So for me, it just comes down to other things outside of, okay, yes, we're dropping 30 a game, but is Joe Burrow still getting hit too much? Are we having the same issues at the end of the games where we're not, pulling these games out and lacking? And I think, Zach's issue has always been the decision making at certain points, and I don't think that that's improved. Like you're thinking about this. This is a game that's a blocked field goal away from, if a guy doesn't touch it on the other team, you're talking about 4-9. So no, I'm not sitting here saying, yeah, guys, we need to keep Zach Taylor now. No, absolutely not. Because if that
No.
ball doesn't bounce our way, we're talking about 4-9 right now.
So, question
Yeah.
for all of you guys: the Bengals have yet to have a victory against a team that has a winning record this season. Looking at the rest of our schedule, we've got two games against, one against the Browns, one against the Titans, but then we play the Steelers again and we play the Broncos again. If we just go with that formula, not beating teams with winning records, we're staring at 7-10. Does Zach
7
Taylor
and
come
10,
back
you
to
got to
7
get
and
rid of
10?
Zach. You got to clear the house. I don't care if they beat the Browns, if they beat the Titans. I don't like you said, Eric. If it's not coming against teams that matter, I don't care about it. I'm clearing house, man. At minimum, I don't even know if Lou should have had his job and been able to even coach tonight based off of the game
Agreed.
a few weeks ago.
Agreed.
If,
Go ahead, Mom.
if the Bengals went out and go 9-8, I don't want that to be like a dead cat bounce. That's what we used to call it in the 90s. They'd win 3 or 4 games at the end of the season, and the Bengals wouldn't make any changes. If they go 9-8, we cannot ignore the issues with this team, and there's a lot of them. We know we talk about roster issues, but it's the front office also. We talk about scouts and not being prepared for the draft. It's also coaching, situational. I mean, Zach Taylor is terrible in situational football. He really is. Lou Anarumo. I mean, there's so many issues on this coaching staff. Somebody mentioned it on Hard Knocks. You watch it. I mean, he just seems stale. He just, sort of seems corny in a way, and he's been here 6 years. Are the players tuning him out? I think they need a real alpha guy in there to get this team back on track. Saying that, I would love to see a coaching change. It's not going to happen because he has 2 years left on his contract. I want to be wrong, but Mike Brown just won't pay a coach to sit on the couch making $10 million. He's not going to do it. I think they'll revamp the coaching staff. I think you'll see potentially 2 new coordinators. I can see Darren Simmons leaving. Not that he's done a bad job, but he's been here 20-some years. I can see them wanting fresh blood there. I think Lou is gone.
Another super chat from Jesus here asking, does anybody think that we could get Zach fired if we spoke up more? I kind of feel like Mike Brown's a contrarian on that, and he's not going to do what anybody says. I don't know if anybody's ever seen The Office where Michael Scott is negotiating, but they say your company's going to be out of business, and he says, I don't care, I'll start another company. I got plenty of names. I kind of feel like Mike Brown is, I'm not in this to make money. I'm in this because the Bengals are my franchise. So I feel like Mike Brown will never sell the team, and whatever we want, he's going to do the opposite because it's his team, and he built this from bottom up. Go ahead,
Listen,
Jake.
there's one human being on this earth that can only speak up about Zach Taylor getting fired, and that's Joe Burrow. He is the only human being that has a chance of getting Zach Taylor fired. There is not another human being on this earth that has a chance of getting Zach Taylor fired unless his name is Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow is, if Joe Burrow walked in and said, I want Zach fired, it would happen. If anyone else on this planet, including Katie Blackburn, walked in, Zach Taylor is not getting fired. I want to throw this out here real quick to you guys because I don't know if you've been looking at this. I know we've been on the show, but these press conferences tonight are nuts. Jamar Chase came out and said this all started because they asked Joe Burrow about Jamar Chase's, how great he is, and Joe is like obviously saying all the right things. Jamar needs to get, he's going to get whatever he deserves, and he deserves it. Jamar says when asked after the game, he believes it's possible to keep himself and T. Higgins in Cincinnati next season. He said, if I have to, I will sign him myself. Listen, you are hearing Joe Burrow, you're hearing Jamar Chase, you're hearing the voices of this locker room saying T. Higgins needs to be back on this football team. I am telling you right now, T. Higgins will be back on this football team. I'm telling you right now, it will happen. Thoughts on that, Mom?
I hope it does happen. I do. I mean, they seem very confident about it. We've talked about it. The Bengals are a better football team with T. Higgins, period. No questions asked.
Period.
Yeah, and anybody that tries to spin it, we can't afford them, can't do this, can't do that. Guys, I can give you 3 roster moves now where we save $30 million. All right.
Sheldon Rankins. Is that why Sheldon Rankins isn't playing?
I can give you 4 roster moves right now where they could save $40 million. I just, the maddening thing, people think I'm negative and all that. I just don't understand how this organization can keep on trotting out guys that just simply aren't playing. They're not producing for you. They're not producing. You got to bring in these other young guys, at least give you something. But no, back to the T. Higgins thing. Man, it is refreshing to see your 2 big studs talking about him. I hope it happens.
And it's good to see it's good to see him smiling too, right? Like they're showing pictures of Joe and Jamar celebrating. They I don't know if you saw, but Jamar walked up while Joe was being interviewed, and then Joe grabbed another donut, stuck it in Jamar's face. Listen, I think these guys are going to. I think they see what has happened these last couple years with Jesse Bates being let go and DJ Reader and Joe Mixon and some of these Tyler Boyd and some of these personalities in the locker room, these leaders in the locker room. I think Joe and Jamar, I think they are probably talking behind closed doors like, listen, you and I have to make this happen, right? Like you and I are stuck together for life. Jamar is not going anywhere, guys. I don't care how much money it takes. He will be a Bengal for life. They both know that they are going to be Bengals for life, and they want to win and make this thing happen. By the way, Jamar Chase, after tonight, this is with 4 games left. 93 catches, 1,319 yards, 15 touchdowns, first in all 3 categories. The Triple Crown is very much in effect, gentlemen.
Let's talk about that because we heard going into it that it was important for them to play out the season to find out who's with them and who's not with them. But this game plan really looked like it was designed not just to go out and win, but to me, this was designed to get Jamar Chase the Triple Crown. They were targeting him early. They were targeting him often. Looked like they were really going for it, and if they keep doing this, they're going to get it for him. We'll go to Ace first. Do you think that's like one of their top priorities, or is it let's try and go there first and get him going and see how the game goes?
I think it's a combination of both, but I think it's very obvious they're trying to get Jamar Chase this triple crown. When you get to certain points of the season, that's what it comes down to. I think about TJ Houshmandzadeh that year, trying to get the Bengals record of the 100 receptions and stuff like that. Jamar Chase is probably going to break it, right? But yeah, this is that part of the season. Get Jamar Chase his triple crown. He deserves it, especially after the offseason that he had. So yeah, I think it's well deserved, and I think it is by design.
Yeah, I was at that Dolphins game, Ace, where they tried to, they were literally force feeding the ball to TJ Houshmandzadeh. They were doing everything they could to get Hoosh the record. Guys, real quick too, listen to these numbers. How is Joe Burrow not going to be in the final three when it comes down to the MVP ballot? His last 5 games, guys, he has thrown 18 touchdowns. He is almost averaging 4 touchdowns a game in his last 5 games. And you know what the Bengals record is? 2-3 in those 5 games. Absolutely absurd. Eric, go ahead and get to that super chat.
Yeah, KP from KC asks, we're Bengals fans. We're diehard. We put the fanatic in fan, but we went tooth and nail with Cooper Rush. We should have blown him out. We really could have blown him out. KP's calling for a tank. I know there's a lot of Bengals fans that share those sentiments. I don't. Anybody here think that we should just pack?
Yes, this guy right here, Abdul Hodge. These guys, like the difference between getting a guy in the top 5, top 10 versus a guy, later, and being that I don't trust that the Bengals would trade up and get him. Now, it's one thing if you're like, all right, the Bengals can move up into the top 10 and get one of these guys. I'm not gonna be mad, bro, if they end up making sure that they secure a top 10 pick. I think it's worth it at this point, more so than us, beating the Browns or something. Like I don't care right now. Right now, I'm focused on 2025. Ever since the Bengals pretty much had a 12% chance to make the playoffs, so I get it. But the Bengals tanked to get Joe Burrow, guys. They did. They literally took Andy Dalton out of the lineup. They put that wasn't them testing to see if Ryan Finley was the guy. That was them saying we need Joe Burrow and we need to do whatever it takes to secure him. And sometimes you got to do it because you're talking about the difference between not having a guy like a Jamar Chase, right? Like if you're telling me that there's a possibility that I can have Travis Hunter or I can win these other 2 games that nobody's going to remember in 2 years, I'm sorry, guys. I'm gonna take the games that get me my team better. So, I think that they are tanking. I'm gonna be honest with you. I think them moving Orlando Brown out, I think them doing Logan Wilson, those are passive aggressive tank moves. They're like, okay, the season's over. All right, let's not put these guys out there. And that's why you're seeing guys like Cody Ford and whoever that practice squad guy is blocking for Joe Burrow. That's why. That's part of it. So I will be the lone wolf on this one, and I will take it because I took it the year that I said that the Bengals should tank and get rid of Andy Dalton. So I will take all of the bullets. I'll take them all like Scarface if it ends up being that Travis Hunter is a Bengal next season.
I think I would feel the same way if we weren't so crappy at drafting and evaluating talent, Ace. I mean, there's eventually you have to look at the fact. I mean, if the Bengals were a great drafting team, and I'm not talking about the automatic home runs. I mean, Jamar and Joe Burrow. I mean, you knew those guys were going to be perennial all pros. They're both going to be Hall of Fame. I mean, you knew that they were elite players in college. But the Bengals drafting, the difference between them drafting 22nd and 16, Ace, let me tell you right now, that's not the good drafting area for the Bengals. And nowhere in that range. They have never hit on those players, ever. They're terrible at it. They're terrible at evaluating talent. Last week we talked about on the show 9 out of their last 10, Ace. Listen to this. 9 out of their last 10 top 100 picks have gone to the defensive side of the ball, Ace. And we are the worst defense in football. 9 out of the last 10, they've picked one offensive player in the last 10 picks in the top 100. And our defense is atrocious. The four of us right now would have a shot at starting on defense for the Bengals.
Yeah,
especially
you
mine.
can't, like you just said, Jake, unless it's an AJ Green pick. When they get into those teams, what they do is, I'll tell you what they'll do. They'll look at the mock drafts like us. They will not do the further evaluation to figure out why certain guys are falling. And then a guy will fall because other teams have done their research and they're like, oh, this guy isn't as high as people think he is. And then when the Bengals get on the clock, they take that guy. And then you try to figure out, like, oh, why is this guy struggling? Because other teams have done their research to say, no, this guy isn't a top 10 pick. He's more of a second rounder or a late first round pick. And here are the Bengals sitting there thinking that they've got this guy that's supposed to be a gem that just slipped down there, and then they don't take him. So no, I don't trust them for that. I don't trust them to move up in the draft, trade up, and I'm not talking about in the second or third. I'm talking about in the first round, like we see the Ravens do, like we see the Steelers do, like we see the Chiefs do. Trade up and go and get a guy. I don't trust them to do it. So I'm sorry. I can't trust the Bengals to make the right picks in that range from 12 to 17. Like, no, give me a top 10 pick. They can't mess that. Well, they messed that up. They did it with John Ross. But hey,
listen,
let's just
I know we gotta move on, but just listen to this real quick. I gotta show you this. I just pulled it up. To see. We'll start from 2014. The Bengals with the 24th overall pick, Darqueze Dennard. In 2015, with the 21st pick, they took Mon's guy, Cedric Ogbuehi. In 2016, with the 24th pick, William Jackson III. In 2017, with the 9th pick, John Ross. In 2018, with the 21st pick, Billy Price. In 2019, with the 11th pick, Jonah Williams. The next 2 years, again, we talked about Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. In 2022, with the 31st pick, Dax Hill. In 2023, with the 28th pick, Miles Murphy. In 2024, with the 18th pick, Amarius Mims. We don't know, the last two, I think there's not enough sample size yet. But that's what we're talking about, right? We're talking about the difference between the Bengals not winning a couple football games and us being miserable to them picking Jonah Williams. You know what I'm saying? Like, that has to be taken into account, Mon.
And the chances of those guys being all pros and like the 20, like, it's not the same likelihood as somebody being drafted in the top 10.
I think the Bengals problem is this. They go best player available for a position of need. Okay. Listen, right. I think McKinley Jackson's going to be a fine pro. He looks really good so far for the Bengals. They picked him, I think, in the 3rd round, if not mistaken. A lot of mocks, a lot of other reputable publications and pundits had him as a later pick. The Bengals really needed a defensive tackle. They might have overdrafted him. I still have high hopes on him, but they do that in every draft. You know what? If you have a player, I use the Pittsburgh Steelers as an example. Fautanu was a first rounder. Zach Frazier was a second rounder. They didn't need another offensive lineman in the 4th and 5th round. Well, guess what? Mason McCormick was there. He was too daggone good to pass up. They drafted him. Even though they just loaded up on offensive linemen, guess what? He's starting for him now. I want the Bengals to do that. If there's a player there like, hey, man, we're loaded at this position, but this guy's so damn good, take him. Take him. Don't reach for somebody because you have a position of need that could be 50-50, 40-60 that he might not pan out for you.
Yeah. So we have another super chat here, and I think these are. I haven't looked at any mock drafts. I know Mon's done 65 of them already. I guess Mason Graham. Thank you, KP from KC. Mason Graham, Will Johnson. We need Pro Bowlers. We have to hit it out of the park on this draft. But I do agree with Mon. So let's just look at this right now. We've got 5 victories on the season. We currently sit in the 11th draft spot. the 8th draft spot is a record of 3-10. There's a lot of bad teams this year. At best, we get to 8th, even if we tank. You got the Jaguars at 3-10, the Titans, the Jets, the Panthers, the Browns. It's going to be really hard for us to get a top 5 pick. At best, we get in the top 10. So I share Mon's sentiment. What we've seen in the past is the Bengals go out in free agency and they go out and they try and sign guys. And if they miss, they say, okay, well, we'll address that in the draft. We absolutely need to sign every position that we need in free agency, even if that's a middle tier. But we need to come out of free agency with 2 guards, a couple of cornerbacks, a safety. We need to go and address every position. And then, like Mon said, when you sit there at the 11th pick, if the best person that's on that board is the running back from Boise State, you take him. And if you sit there in the 2nd round and the best player available is a defensive tackle or a linebacker, you take him. You get talent and you stack up. How many times do we watch these Steelers games when they say, well, this linebacker wasn't on their board. They didn't need another linebacker, but you know what? He was there and they took him, and now somebody's injured and he's out here sacking Joe Burrow. That's the way you build winning football teams. And we have to start doing that. We can't fill some of our needs through the draft and some through the
But Eric, we can't. Yeah, I agree, Eric. I agree. We 100%. I agree with you, but we can't strike out in free agency. Also, the last 2 off seasons, our free agent classes have been really poor.
You need
really
to swing
poor.
twice, but you need to swing twice. Free agency, you take a swing at every position of need, and then in the draft, you take best player available, not best player available at position of need. Everything except for quarterback is off the table, is on the table. Take the best guys, trade up if you need to, and then you have a starting guard and a backup guard because you got one in the draft as well. And if you struck out on free agency, you got that draft pick to go back up on.
Agreed. I think we got some other super chats here.
Yep.
Jesus, I think
2 more from Jesus. These games, yeah. I'm gonna keep it real. If we lose 1 more, let's boycott these games.
Jesus, calm down, man. Let's enjoy the win tonight. Let's enjoy it.
Other teams don't tolerate mediocre fans or GM.
Yep. Hey, this is what I'm gonna say. Philadelphia Eagles team, Zim sent that tweet in about them getting pissed about Jalen Hurts. That team has lost 3 games? They won the game. They still are sitting there demanding changes, demanding stuff to happen. And it's funny because an old roommate of mine, long time ago, was an Eagles fan, and he said that the standards in Philadelphia. He said that's what he said to me. He said that things aren't going to change in Cincinnati until the standards of the fan base changes. He was like, we've gone to so many NFC championships and we didn't care about that. We fired Andy Reid because we weren't living up to our expectation. And that's what it is. You can't tolerate stuff like this. Like, oh, we want to get to Cowboys. Let's keep Zach Taylor out. No, the standard is this Bengals team should have been competing for a Super Bowl. No matter how you feel about it,
yes,
that's what they should have been doing. And they have fallen far below that standard.
Well, yeah, and you're right. It does fall on us. It's frustrating. I drive so far for these games, and we didn't get to see a victory in Cincinnati this year. We had one more. We were going to go up to the Broncos game, but my kids are tired. That's a 36-hour drive, both ways, plus all the staying in hotels. This fan base goes to the games. We're passionate. The stadium is rocking, and then they send us home with a loss. Yeah,
1-5 to pay for. That's crazy. 1-5.
1-5.
I just want to say one last thing. We talked about it a few minutes ago. If Joe Burrow speaks, for example, if he talks about if he's frustrated with coaches, I could see management saying, hey, our quarterback wants a change. I could tell you one other thing. I mentioned it a few episodes ago. Guys, they're in the middle of a big contract negotiation with the city and Hamilton County for this Paycor Stadium renovation. They want $600 million, $700 million. They can't have an unhappy fan base, So, that could change things also, bringing in a big-time coach or something. We'll see. It's going to be an interesting few months, but I'm glad they won tonight, and I just want to see these young guys continue to play and see what they got.
Well, the Bengals moved to 2-7 now in one-score games. 2-7.
Woo!
They have played 13
Jesus
games,
Christ.
and in 9 of those games, it has come down to the last possession, and they are 2-7. That is what cannot be overlooked, guys. You cannot overlook that. Two
Well,
and seven in one-score games is coaching. That is coaching, and that is coaching. Uh, and you can't overlook that. You just can't overlook that.
no, and so we have one more super chat before we do. We've got almost 700 people in here tonight this morning. Thanks to everybody for coming and joining us. No therapy session tonight, even though we're still going through it because it's been a rough year. We had a great weekend with our abusive relationship, but we still remember all the prior weekends. But Jesus does have one more comment, and this does kind of sum it up. I thought it was Super Bowl or bust. We're still in the bust mindset. So as fans, unless we somehow sneak into the playoffs by the hand of God, we should be holding them accountable for the bust because that's what it so far has been. Thoughts on that? We'll go around before we get out of here. Ace.
Go ahead, Ace. Why don't you start us off?
Yeah, man, I'm sorry. I was zoning out because I was actually just watching somebody talk about Joe Burrow shouldn't be taking these extra hits. So I'm sorry, I did not hear anything that you guys just said right now. What was the question?
Just Super Bowl or bust.
Oh yeah, bro. Like I just said, it's Super Bowl or bust. I mean, this is supposed to be get back against the Chiefs and all of that. We're not even going to be there. We're not going to be there to be able to get this revenge on the Ravens, the Chiefs, any of these teams. So it's Super Bowl or bust for me. So to me, this season is a bust. Shout out to them for getting the victory. I'm not trying to be the negative guy, but no, it's a bust for me right now.
Mon, go ahead.
Okay, listen, I'm speaking right now to Mike Brown, Katie Blackburn, Troy Blackburn. Thanks for the win tonight. I'm always happy for a Bengal win. Guys, we have a generational quarterback, a generational wide receiver, another wide receiver that's elite, top 15 player in football. We need you to step up and fill in the gaps. We need to reinforce our roster flaws. We need to fix it. We deserve a championship in Cincinnati. The fan base, the city, it's there for the taking. It can happen. It can happen in the next couple years. You got to go above and beyond and just make it right. You got to do it because we got something special brewing here with these players. We just need a little bit more around them, and we can get that championship in Cincinnati.
Oh, I think it's 100% bust. If this team does not make the playoffs, you can't turn and twist this into anything else than what it is. You just can't. You are finishing this year hopefully with a healthy Joe Burrow and a healthy Jamar Chase. If you do not make the playoffs, it is 100%. I'm not even going to say Super Bowl or bust. It is playoffs or bust. This team should be making the playoffs every single year, and we should not expect anything less than that. This team is – listen, there are definitely flaws in the roster. There are holes in the roster. But this team – you still look at this team's roster and you put it against other rosters in the NFL, and it is it's right there. I mean, Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and Trey Hendrickson are top. They are the three of them are in the top 15 best players in the NFL. You have three of the top 15 best players in the NFL, and you are 5-8. That is completely unacceptable. And again, if the Bengals don't make the playoffs, this whole coaching staff should be fired. And I'm not being negative. I'm being factual. And if you don't believe that as a Bengal fan, then what are your expectations of this team? What are your standards? Where do you want to see this team go? Because if we keep wanting mediocrity, that is what we are going to get as mediocrity. And that's what we got this year. It's a bust.
So the only thing I'll say, and you guys know I'm always so you're telling me there's a chance we can get to 9-8. The Broncos, in my opinion, are our main competition. The Broncos need to lose 3 of their next 4 games. They play the Colts. They play the Bengals. They play the Chargers. And they play the Chiefs. There are 3 games on there. If we control our game, there's 3 losses. There's 3 one-score games out there. There's a chance. I'm not packing it in. I agree. If we don't make the playoffs, it's bust, and we should blow it up. I think they only blow it up if we get to 10 losses. I'm still going to root for us to get to the playoffs and to win it all and to write that story. But playoffs are bust. I agree.
Hope it happens.
All right. Well, listen, hey, we got to get out of here. Thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. How many did we have tonight?
Close to 800 at one time.
Man, appreciate that, guys, so much. Thank you for the love. Again, we are so appreciative of you guys jumping on here with us. We know it's late. It's going on 1 a.m. But I'll be honest with you guys. I'm going to have a hard time sleep. I'm excited about this. I'm excited when the Bengals win. I know the season isn't where we want it to be, but I know tomorrow is going to be a good day because I do not have to read and listen to all the nonsense. This Bengals team, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Trey Hendrickson, T. Higgins, Chase Brown, those guys deserve to win. They deserve to win, and I'm happy for them to do that. Ace, want to thank you so much for joining us tonight, man. Always appreciate that. If you guys like this podcast, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to this podcast. Make sure you check us out on all the awesome podcast platforms, Apple, Stitcher, Spotify. As always, if you like this podcast, make sure you give us that 5-star review. We would very much appreciate that. As always, check out all the awesome podcasts right here on the Cincinnati Podcast Network. Follow Mon on Twitter at The Fire Mon. Follow me on Twitter at Coach Jake Owens 9. Follow Eric on Twitter at eFlash with 2 H's 88. Follow the Cincinnati Podcast Network on Twitter at Cincinnati Pod. And guys, as always, follow the Bengals Pulse on Twitter at Bengals_Pulse9. The same on Instagram without the app, Bengals_Pulse9. Ace, where can they find you at, bud? I know most of them know where you are, but why don't you give your handle so they know where to find you on Twitter?
At New Stripe City is where you guys can find me on Twitter.
At New Stripe City, as always. Ace, thank you so much for everything. Matthew Stafford is a top 10 quarterback. Again.
Oh, no, don't even.
I want to make sure I threw that in there.
75 tweets, man.
Sometime tonight. This is the Bengals Pulse, guys, the heartbeat of our Cincinnati Bengals. He is Mon. He is Eric. That is our guy, Ace. I am Jake. Hoo Day, Bengal fans. We will see you next week. Thanks for joining us, guys.